All right, welcome. We're going to break down your complete roadmap to becoming a mortgage loan originator. We'll cover everything you need to know from the very first step all the way to your first day on the job.
So, you're thinking about becoming a mortgage loan officer? You're definitely not alone. It's a great career path, but, it can seem kind of complicated with all the steps and weird jargon. Don't worry, we're going to make it super simple for you.
First things first, what does an MLO actually do? Well, think of them as the expert guide for someone making one of the biggest financial decisions of their life, buying a home. From that initial application to getting the keys, the MLO is there every step of the way, making sure the whole financing journey goes smoothly.
Now, this whole licensing world is run through one big, powerful system. It's called the NMLS. It's the official registry that tracks your education, your license, your whole career, really. It gives you a unique ID that sticks with you no matter where you end up working.
And who's keeping an eye on the entire industry? That would be the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, or the CFPB. It was created as part of the SAFE Act, and its main job is to protect people like you and me. That's exactly why all these licensing standards we're about to talk about are so important.
Okay, let's get into the good stuff. Here's our game plan. We'll start with how your journey begins, then we'll dive into the education and the big exam. After that, we'll talk costs and background checks, then state licenses and sponsorship, and we'll wrap up with how to really succeed once you're in.
All right, first up, your MLO journey begins. Let's dig into the first few critical steps you've got to take.
So your path really kicks off with these 3 fundamental steps. First, you get your unique ID from the NMLS. Simple enough. Then you knock out your required pre-licensing education. And finally, you prove you know your stuff by passing the national exam.
Now, that education we just mentioned, it's a 20-hour course, and it has to be approved by the NMLS. This isn't just about checking a box either. This course is packed with all the crucial info you'll need on federal laws, ethics, and lending standards to do your job right.
Looking at how the SAFE exam is broken down tells you a lot. A full quarter of it is about the actual day-to-day activities of originating a loan. That shows you it's not just about memorizing rules. It's about proving you can actually do the job and do it ethically.
Okay, next section, education and the exam. This part is pretty much the entire foundation of your new career.
So, let's talk money. What's the real cost to get started? Honestly, the total upfront investment is probably more affordable than you think. For most people, you're going to land somewhere in this range, but it does depend on a couple of things. Let's break those costs down a bit. The numbers that are going to move around the most are your education course and the state fees. The other stuff, like the exam itself and the background check, are pretty much fixed. This gives you a good idea of where you might be able to find some savings.
And yeah, where you live plays a huge part in that final number. States with more complex rules, think California or New York, they just tend to have higher fees across the board. It's definitely something you need to factor in when you're planning all this out.
Okay, so we've covered the education you need and the money it'll cost. Now, let's turn to another huge piece of the puzzle, the personal background and credit checks you'll have to go through.
See, it's not just about passing a test. The NMLS also wants to make sure that you're someone with integrity and financial responsibility. So what are the big red flags that they're on the lookout for?
These are the most common things that can trip you up. Any felony that involves financial crimes like fraud or theft, that's a permanent no-go. Other felonies in the last 7 years can also be a problem. And this should go without saying, but being dishonest on your application, that's an immediate deal breaker.
All right, once you've passed the exam and you've cleared the background checks, you are so close. The last big steps are getting your actual state license and finding an employer to sponsor you.
Passing the national exam is a huge deal, but hold on, it doesn't mean you can work just anywhere. You have to apply for a license in every single state where you plan to originate loans. And just be ready, because every state has its own fees and sometimes even extra education requirements.
So your license is kinda in limbo. It'll stay in pending status until it's officially connected to a mortgage company. We call this sponsorship. It's the system's way of making sure a licensed company is taking full responsibility for what you do and that you're following all the rules.
It all happens right inside the NMLS portal, and it's a pretty straightforward 3-step dance. First, you give your new employer permission to see your record. Then they go in and link you to their company. And finally, they send the official sponsorship request to the state for the final sign-off.
Getting your license is a massive accomplishment, for sure, but it's really just the starting line.
Now let's talk about what it takes to not just keep that license, but to build a really successful, thriving career.
Think of it this way. Getting licensed is the sprint, but staying licensed, that's the marathon. It's an annual commitment. Every single year, you'll have to do 8 hours of continuing education and pay your renewal fees. It's how you stay current and compliant in an industry that's always changing.
And this is so important. The license gets you in the game, but it doesn't teach you how to win. Like the top producers will tell you, the company you choose to work for is just as critical as the license itself. Are they going to invest in you? Do they have good systems and real mentorship? That's what separates the good MLOs from the great ones.
So, we've walked you through the whole roadmap to getting your license. But the real journey? That starts the day after you have it in your hand. So I'll leave you with this question. What's your plan for day one? What's your plan for year one? Figuring that out is your first step to building an amazing career in this business.